Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yeji, like Yeji, and my channel is all about traveling for free using points and miles because let's be real, traveling can get really expensive. So if you don't have to spend any money, why would you, right? So if that sounds interesting to you, let's be internet besties and consider subscribing below. And let's get into today's video. Today I wanted to talk about 3 different booking portals using points, how you can book airlines with those points that you've acquired. So those points will turn into miles, and that way you can book either business class or economy or heck, even first class if that's your thing, to travel to wherever you want to travel to. Those 3 booking sites are Air Canada, United, and ANA. And I want to compare these 3 specifically because they are all part of Star Alliance. Before we get into like the booking portal, let me tell you a little bit about different airline alliances. So there's the Star Alliance, which is actually the biggest of all the airlines. There is SkyTeam and there's Oneworld. And depending on which airline you fly, obviously you have to book within that alliance. I fly a lot of Star Alliance just because, like I mentioned before, it's the biggest alliance, so a lot of the airlines are part of this alliance, and their network is really extensive. And also the fact that the booking portals that are easiest to book from actually are part of the Star Alliance. So Air Canada, ANA, which is a Japanese airline, as well as United, they're all part of Star Alliance. So you can book pretty much any airline within that Star Alliance using these 3 platforms, granted if there is availability, of course. But most of the time, if you're looking for economy flights, I've seen a lot of availability, like rarely will I ever encounter like having no availability for economy. The hard part is obviously business or first class, but I'm not even going to talk about first class today because a lot of these airlines don't even offer first class on their planes. A lot of times it's just business class. So we'll stick with business and economy for today. And I also wanted to preface this video by saying that yes, I did have to search for these award availability, and I just randomly like searched them just based on my interests of where I would like to go, for instance. So when you search for whatever city that you want to travel to, you might have to like dig around a little bit, meaning like search for like couple days or even couple weeks or within that month, for instance, that you want to travel. Like you just need to like search a little bit. So let's start off with flying to Warsaw from the US. And a lot of the flights that leave to Europe, because I mean, we're going east, it's a lot easier to find award availability when you look at like the East Coast cities. If you have a specific airline that you want to fly with, then obviously you can Google and see which city those airlines depart from. But if that's not the case and it's kind of just general up in the air, like you don't care what airline you fly with as long as you get to the destination, it's just a lot easier to find award availability from the East Coast. So think bigger cities like JFK, EWR, BOS, Boston, IAD from DC, ATL from Atlanta, Miami, those big cities. It's just easier to find award availability. So I found a business class availability on March 11th. I just literally picked random dates somewhere in the spring because usually springtime and fall time, it's low season. I like to travel during low season because things are cheaper and there's less people. So I just like that. And of course, if you have kids and you gotta work with their schedule, then I get it. Summertime is the only time you can travel. But if you're able to travel, let's say even like spring break, for instance, a lot of the cities in Europe don't really have spring break like we do in the US. So if you're taking your kids, then maybe think about traveling during spring break. So March 11th, leaving from DC IAD to Warsaw, Poland, and this is flying with Lufthansa. Air Canada would charge 70,000 miles for a business class and some taxes. For that same flight, United would charge $88,000 to fly to Warsaw, and ANA charges $100,000 to travel to Warsaw. Now with ANA, as of now, you can only book round trip. So they're gonna open things up and they say that they're gonna start allowing for one-way trips with ANA, but as of now, only round trip. But if you do the math, 100K round trip to go to Europe, it's a lot cheaper to use the ANA platform to fly to Europe than to book through Air Canada or United. So right off the bat, ANA is cheaper because it's round trip, then it would be Air Canada, and then United would be the most expensive. Most people would be like, oh yeah, then I'll totally book with ANA because it's round trip, so technically it's only 50K to go to Europe and back. Well, there's a caveat. So with ANA, they transfer taxes and fees onto the customer. So for instance, a lot of the European airlines such as Lufthansa, Swiss Airline, Austrian Airways, a lot of those airlines charge a hefty price for taxes. ANA transfers those taxes. So if you look at ANA, they charge 332,220 yen. Now, I converted that on Google to see how much it is in dollars, and in dollars, it's $2,304.80. Do you want to be spending over $2,000 on essentially free flights, right? Because the whole point of using points and miles is so that you can travel for free just to go to Europe? Then that kind of defeats the purpose of using points, because you're still paying over $2,000 for this ticket. Sure, flying business is going to cost a lot more than $2,000, but $2,000, that's still like an economy price ticket. Then if you're going to spend that money, might as well just fly economy and save your points and not use points and have to pay money, United charges $50.60. So, $50 for an award flight to go to Europe, I think that's totally doable. Now, if you look at Air Canada, they charge $140, and that's Canadian dollars, so it'd be a little bit cheaper for US dollars. But the points are a little bit cheaper than what you would pay for United. So it's just up to you. Would you pay a little bit more miles but have less taxes and fees? Or you don't mind spending the taxes and fees a little bit and saving up your miles? Like, that just honestly depends on you and your situation. One thing I do want to note though is you got to look at the transfer partners. So like I said, we're talking about 3 different platforms, so 3 different airlines where you can book these flights from: ANA, Air Canada, and United. Air Canada has 3 transfer partners. So those partners are Amex, Chase, and Capital One. ANA only has 1, Amex, and United only has 1, which is Chase. So if you have a lot of Chase points and you would rather pay less in taxes and fees and just spend more on points, then by all means Chase is fine because you can transfer it to United. But if you don't have that many Chase points and you've diversified your portfolio like most people should, then it's a lot easier to acquire Air Canada points because you have Amex, Chase, and Capital One, so you have a lot of options to transfer into your Air Canada account. Same thing goes with Amex and ANA. I really value ANA and therefore I love Amex, but maybe certain people are not willing to dish out a lot on the annual fees to keep Amex cards, which is totally understandable. And a lot of people only, let's say, have Chase or Capital One, for instance. Then Air Canada might be your only option because you're locked out of ANA, for instance. So it just depends on your credit card setup and how many miles you have in each bank so that you can transfer it to these different platforms. Another itinerary I looked at is leaving on March 17th, and that is flying out of JFK going to Athens. And I just picked Athens because that's just the city that I like to go to. I love Greece and Greek culture and the history, and so I just randomly decided to pick on it. So I found flights leaving from JFK in New York to Athens, Greece, and Air Canada would charge $70K to fly to Athens. United would charge $88K, and ANA would charge $100K. So if you look at the prices compared to the previous itinerary going to Warsaw, they're all the same. So going to Europe is going to cost you in business class roughly $70K, $88K, sometimes $90K depending on the airline. Like for instance, Turkish Airlines, they charge $90K. So it's going to cost you somewhere there to fly to Europe one way per person. Now, once again, the differences are the taxes. So Air Canada would be around $105, United would be $25.30, and ANA, after I converted it on Google, it'll cost $2,343.24. And the reason why ANA is so expensive, like I said, is because they transfer that to the partners, but also it's Swiss Airlines. Swiss Airline is like notorious for having expensive taxes and fees. It's a great airline. Nice, very nice hard product, but it is expensive to fly. So if you want to fly these nicer airlines, it's better off to use either Air Canada or United to book these flights because the taxes are not that high compared to ANA. Save ANA for a cheaper airline, cheaper meaning like less in taxes and fees. So now that we talked about 2 itineraries that are going to Europe, I wanted to switch gears and talk about one itinerary that is going to Asia, or more specifically Tokyo, because Japan's all the rage right now. Everyone wants to go to Tokyo. And because I talked about business classes, I wanted to talk about economy this time because not everyone wants to fly business. I get it. A lot of people would rather take more people with them to travel and therefore travel economy because obviously it costs less than spend a bunch of points to just, to spend on that one flight. And I get it. It's just that my family likes to travel in business because I'm in my 30s, and if you're in your 20s, like you can rough it up a little bit. It's totally fine. You hit 30s and you're like, yeah, no, I need comfort. Like I can't do like backpacking anymore and stuff like that. And also my husband's 6 years older than me, so it's even worse for him. So we don't like to fly economy unless it's like a shorter trip, then we don't mind. But if it's like across the ocean, then we prefer business. But still, like let's say you're taking 4 people and having to fly business with 4 people. First of all, finding availability is a lot more difficult the more people you have. And second of all, it's obviously more expensive to fly with 4 people in business. You don't need as many points if you fly economy. So I get it. So I wanted to talk about an itinerary that costs less and more doable for most people. Now, March 16th, leaving from SFO San Francisco to Tokyo, whether it's Haneda or Narita, they cost the same. It just depends on which airport you want to land at. Now, this would be flying with ANA Airlines. So ANA, like I said, is a Japanese airline. So Air Canada would charge you $50K for an economy to fly from San Francisco to Tokyo. United would charge $55K. ANA would actually charge you $50K for round trip. $50K. This is also cheaper because you're using their platform to book their airline, so obviously it's cheapest that way. But $50K round trip, I feel like that's unbeatable, like seriously. So if you're planning on booking a flight to Japan, just book through ANA because it's just so much cheaper. Now, once again, taxes and fees differ a little bit. Air Canada charges 78 Canadian dollars. United only charges $5.60. And ANA would charge you $392.53, and that's after the conversion. And yes, I know it's closer to $400, but still, like if you're only paying $50K round trip, I would totally just book through the ANA platform because nothing beats that. $25K to go to Asia. Seriously, one way, like that's unheard of. But of course, you need Amex points for that. If you don't have Amex points, then you have to either book with Air Canada or United. So you're kind of left with Chase or Capital One. So once again, it depends on the number of points that you have from each bank. The last itinerary that I want to talk about is going to Africa. Now, maybe there's some of you that want to go to Africa and do a nice safari with your family. So either you want to go to Kenya to do Masai Mara, or even Tanzania to do Serengeti and Ngorongoro, or maybe, who knows, you want to go to South Africa and you want to do the Kruger parks. It just depends on you. But I just decided to pick Nairobi just because Masai Mara is pretty famous, and I think a lot of people go to Masai Mara versus Serengeti, in my opinion, because Kenya is a little bit more well-known in the international scene than Tanzania, I feel like. So anyway, so the flight would also be leaving March 16th from IAD, Washington, D.C. to MBO, Nairobi, and you'd be flying Ethiopian Airways. Air Canada would charge $90K, United would charge $88K, and ANA will charge $130K. Now, if you do have the Amex points, I would say book with ANA because you would be saving around 46,000 points, which is quite a bit of points that you would be saving if you went the ANA route. But in this scenario though, Air Canada charges $90K, so Air Canada would be more expensive than United, which is interesting because Ethiopian Airlines is not really that nice. Like the hard product is not that nice compared to European Airlines or even like Turkish Airlines. So I don't know why it's a little bit more expensive than what United would charge. So if you're wanting to go to Africa with Ethiopian Airways, I would first use ANA if you can. But of course, if you don't, then United is a bit cheaper than Air Canada. I think Air Canada considers Africa a little bit further away maybe than Europe. I mean, it is further away. So it is $90K compared to United, which charges $88K, which is the same price as going to Europe. The prices are the same if you flew to Tanzania, for instance, because from Addis you can travel to Dar es Salaam instead of Nairobi. And I also checked that and the prices are the same. So these are just some of the locations and itineraries that I just researched real fast. Depending on which platform you use, prices are gonna change a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. But mainly it depends on your portfolio and what your points look like. If I had to just compare like platforms and how easy it is to use, I would say Air Canada is actually one of the easiest platforms to use, like user friendly. It is just very clean and gives you all the information you need right off the bat. United, on the other hand, you kind of have to dig for that award availability because it gives you so many that you just have to like filter it or just scroll through it, and that kind of takes a little bit of your time. And on the other hand, I think is the hardest to use for most people, because if the page doesn't load in English, and obviously then you have to find the language button to change it to English, and then you have to click on award reservations to go into booking with points. And with ANA, as of now, you can only book round trips, so that means you also have to be able to find the award availability for the second leg of your trip. One thing I like to do is click on that 3-day availability button. It'll show you up to 3 days of availability. So let's say you click on a date and there's no availability. By pressing that button, it'll show you like 3 more days, so you can see within that week if there is availability on a certain day, and that way you can kind of customize your itinerary that way. If you become familiar with ANA, I promise you'll be able to save a lot of points. Of course, you have to have accounts with all 3 of these airlines. So if you haven't made an account yet, then you do need an account. So ANA is my favorite method of searching award availability, and then it'd be Air Canada, and then it'd be United. Also with United, I feel like most people who have Chase points would use Chase points to transfer to Hyatt and book Hyatt instead of through the United platform. I hope today's video kind of helped you understand like how many points would be needed to fly to each continent, whether it's Europe, Africa, or Asia. And once you kind of get a feel for how many points are needed, it helps you understand which credit cards to get in the future, because a lot of the times welcome bonuses change depending on the bank, right? So let's say a card from Chase, they're offering it for like 60K or 80K. Well, if you do the math, that 60K or 80K would be like a one-way trip to like, let's say Europe, for instance, and that would pay for like half your trip. So it kind of helps you to plan ahead in the future of how many points that you would need, and also to think about which credit cards to get from which banks, because then you know which transfer partners work in different platforms. Anyway, I hope today's video was helpful and informative, because that's always my goal, to be helpful and informative to you guys. What is your favorite booking site that you like to use? Because mine's ANA, as I mentioned multiple times throughout this video, because you need less points to travel. And I'm actually really excited to see what ANA does, because if they offer one-way flights, then I think that would be unbeatable. Granted, if they keep the cost the same, like if they increase the prices, then things might be different. But as of now, if they keep it the same and they offer one-way, I think ANA would seriously be like unbeatable. But what is your opinion? If you like this video, also give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time with a different video. Bye!